Well, if you're just joining us, you're watching the Daily Roundup right here on your home channel, NBC1. We give you now your first interview. Now, tomorrow, May the 17th, is International Day against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia, shortly known as IDAHOBIT. Now, this yearly event aims to raise awareness about violence, discrimination, and oppression faced by LGBTQIA+ individuals worldwide. Now, in honor of IDAHOBIT 2024, we have Salen Kambinda, the Director of Positive Vibes in Namibia, to discuss the challenges that the LGBTQIA+ community in Namibia faces and the work carried out by the organization to promote equality and inclusion. Positive Vibes is a non-profit organization that has been advocating for LGBTQIA+ rights in Namibia since 2002. Very good evening, Ms. Kambinda. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Let's go a bit back and just maybe get to understand, some insight when it comes to the current situation faced by the LGBTQIA+ individuals in Namibia. What are the primary challenges and the human rights issues they confront?
Thank you. And yes, it's quite important day that we are getting into tomorrow.
Right.
IDAHOBIT. The Namibian landscape with regard to lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and intersex and other queer people have been really daunting over the past few months. It is with regard to rhetoric by parliamentarians. It is negative rhetoric by some charismatic churches that influenced really the human rights agenda of LGBT communities in Namibia. There's a lot of progressive movement in the landscape with regard to HIV and AIDS programming. We have really seen incidences reducing over the few years with regard to generally populations that are left behind, under which the LGBT community is also resorting. But with the legal landscape, for example, the sodomy law, the immoral practices law that have not been repealed, it really face daunting and challenging times for the community. So, but we also must celebrate. We had a landmark judgment last year on couples married outside the borders of Namibia to be recognized in Namibia.
Right.
We have just filed 2 years ago a case to challenge the constitutionality of the sodomy law. So tomorrow was supposed to be the judgment, but it has been deferred to June, around 14th of June. So other than that, there's a lot of movement, a lot of organizations that have been registered and doing great work around human rights in Namibia, besides Positive Vibes Trust.
All right. Let's talk about the societal attitudes and cultural norms that, in Namibia that contribute to things such as homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. How can these be, confronted and changed?
So we have seen really that there's quite a big spike in hate speech, as well as discrimination in communities.
And what are the causes of that?
I think media plays quite a big role.
Right.
The sensationalization of LGBT issues, sales papers, unfortunately, but also it's election year for Namibia. And it is a cheap campaign voters technique by some parliamentarians to get the attention and the ear of Namibians in a very negative and discriminatory way. That affects directly what is going out in parliament and in media, affects directly that gay boy in Oshikuku or in many parts of Namibia, in Rundu and so on. So it is really affected by hate speech, social media, cyberbullying, and so on. To date, in a very short time, we have had about 6 murders in Namibia, which is alarming for a country like Namibia in terms of LGBT persons that are reported. How many is even not reported? And those are the murders. There's quite several attacks in people, in communities, in Namibia with regard to physical attacks, emotional, mental attacks, mental health attacks. And also service provision has been becoming quite a challenge for LGBT persons to access safety and security, social services, but also getting into something that heteronormative people see as normal, getting up, going to church, worshipping. The sermons change immediately when that trans woman in her awesome outfit would come in. So it's a mixture of issues. And it is really becoming alarming for a country that has a democracy, that is a constitutional democracy, that is free speech, free expression, and has the promise of pursuit of happiness for all its citizens.
Yeah. Now, Positive Namibia, Positive Vibes Namibia rather, has been operating diligently for over 20 years, if I speak under correction. But how do you actually work in the community to actually get the statistics of the challenges currently faced by the LGBTQIA plus community, and what exactly what type of solutions are you trying to bring out for these challenges to be combated? Absolutely.
So a human rights organization that works in the field of justice, health, equity, and equality for all. That just means that we are Namibian, as you said, non-profit organization,
right,
but we have very proudly and boldly branched out to about 14 African countries,
right,
to the Middle East, to to Asia, as well as the Americas. Namibian, homegrown. Our work surrounds the portfolio of human rights. So right from parliamentary level, to policies, to laws, working at service level, as well as communities, we create methodologies that help communities to feel inclusive and safe, to be free and to be equal in terms of Namibian societies. So we work in the sectors of inclusive governance. We work in bodily autonomy and integrity. We are the biggest global fund grantee in terms of key populations in Namibia. So we receive money from government to do human rights work for HIV/AIDS. It is not us against government. We are the government. We are all the government, and we are contributing to one of the biggest pieces in terms of human rights in the country. We train parliamentarians on sexual health, reproductive health, and rights. We contribute to the national policies on human rights. And that is just, in a nutshell, the work that we are doing in Namibia and across Southern Africa.
Very interesting indeed. Let's talk about tomorrow, the 17th, of course, International Day of Homophobia, against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. What is the Positive Vibes Namibia going to be doing to celebrate this day, and how are you going to commemorate it, and where is it going to take place? If you can just mention that briefly, please.
Okay. So we were actually hoping around a positive judgment tomorrow, but it has been deferred to June. The IDAHOBIT Day normally comes with very visible media like this one. Our work centers around consistent work around human rights. So although International Day is celebrated also in Namibia, it is all about doing the work consistently and in a conducive way that helps people. The theme this year, and it's quite important, is leave no one behind. Equality, freedom, and justice for all. That says quite a lot. Yesterday and today we were in a movement-based meeting to also look at what does the strategy say to date. What is really the landscape in terms of safety and security for Namibians that are othered and left behind? And it is not just a fraction of people. It is LGBT persons and their families. It is communities that are marginalized. Mind you, we are also working in the space of adolescent girls and young women, of youth, young people. So it is really around families, about what is right for families and making families safe in Namibia with regard to people that they call my mother, my sister, my brother, my uncle, my aunt, and that are so ostracized currently in Namibia.
Very well. Salen, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us this evening. I wish we could, of course, delve into this conversation more, but that's all the time we have for you. But thank you so much for making time and doing your busy schedule to be with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Salen Kambinda, the director of Positive Vibes Namibia, was just talking to us about the challenges that the LGBTQIA plus community faces in Namibia. And of course, the 17th of May, which is tomorrow, celebrated as the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia.